Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My older sister, Pam, has always been my parents' favorite. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't accept that she was quite literally perfect. She was good at academics, she was good at art, good at sports, great at cheerleading, cooking, etc. It's like you just had to name it, and she had it in her. I was proud of her because, with everything she had achieved, she really deserved to be the favorite among the siblings. The siblings consisted of Pam, me, Ava, and Josh. Chronologically, and like I said, Pam was the favorite, the apple of everyone's eye. The craze was so much that even some of my relatives preferred her over their own children sometimes. Even though we all understood why this all happened, being kids, we all always had some sort of pent up resentment towards her and our families. We wouldn't blame Pam for being good and talented, but we'd have resentment towards her over the fact that she would quite literally either ignore our existence or treat us like third class citizens when she was around us. This behavior of hers was encouraged by our parents and the rest of the family too, because apparently they wanted to keep her as far away as they possibly could from spoilt kids like us, even when we were just normal school-going kids living normal lives. This continued all through our elementary years and high school. Even when most of us became popular and good at things ourselves, our achievements were never considered enough by our parents. Now, as children, we could turn a blind eye to this, but as teens in high school, most of us started planning our escape because we were quite literally fed up with being treated horribly and outright like lower class people for absolutely no reason. So, when college came around, me, my siblings, and my cousins began leaving their houses for college and started going into low contact with their families, one after the other. As for Pam, on the other hand, her downfall sort of started to come as she began struggling tremendously in college. This wasn't even because her course is difficult. It was due to her inability to work hard and her stern belief that being as beautiful and talented as she is, everything should be served to her on a silver platter. We all know how this attitude goes in college. You'll quite literally get thrown in the trash, and that is exactly what happened when she started failing one class after the other in college. And by that time, most of us were in our senior year of high school. So the fact that my parents and our relatives tried so hard to hide it all as if we wouldn't understand everything that was happening was astounding. Well, the lives of my siblings, cousins, and I really bloomed in college. Unlike my sister, we made a lot of friends who became like our families. Our self esteem boosted due to the lack of contact with our families and due to all the academic validation. Life was really good. What made things even better is the fact that none of my family, literally none, tried to contact us all that much. And honestly, even though I know what should make us sad, it was like a blessing in disguise for us. Pam finished graduating with a horrible GPA, one that landed her no job, but with her backup plan of marrying a rich, nerdy guy, she was able to move to another city and live a lavish life. This too was praised by my family, and at that point, none of us were surprised, even in the slightest. So that is how life has been for us all these years. We all graduated from college with great GPAs, one after the other, and also landed good jobs with great partners. Pam continued to live a life being one of that essential oil supporting trophy wives, all until she decided to say, F it, and pick up the I'm going to bite the hand that feeds me and cheat on my husband, who has been nothing but kind, sweet, understanding to me, while I've been nothing but entitled and bratty towards him attitude. That's what Pam did. To put it in brief, but to explain in detail, she cheated on her husband with her yoga instructor, and now they're divorced. Pam, due to the prenuptial agreement, got nothing. And honestly, when I found this out, I was glad because at least her poor ex husband can take a breath of fresh air away from her. But who knew? She was now going to come back, not to learn her lesson, but to make my life miserable. It all started when I announced my wedding with my fiance, Jess. We made a small announcement at a family dinner. I knew I was going to invite my entire family because even if we were in low contact, I didn't want to be the butt of all the unnecessary remarks if I didn't invite them now that I think about it. Boy, was I wrong because things would have been much better if I simply just didn't invite them. The moment I announced my wedding became the moment Pam began sulking about her divorce and how I shouldn't celebrate love when this year is full of hate for her. My parents, like always, agreed with her, but of course, being adults, my siblings, cousins, and I immediately shut down the idea of it. And of course, my parents couldn't do much except for making snide remarks here and there because they were not paying for the wedding and thus they knew they had no say in it. I used this fact to get some sort of ego trip because I knew how much they resented me but couldn't do anything. So I planned my wedding as lavishly as I possibly could, all the while watching Pam fume with rage, thinking to myself, what's the worst she could do? Not knowing the extent of how I was going to have my wedding ruined. It all started at my wedding itself. Pam came along with her date, who I had never invited, but once again I ignored it because I didn't want to ruin my mood on a special day. The wedding went smoothly. The date seemed to be of no threat until the reception began. Things gradually began sloping downhill from there onwards. Firstly, Pam was wearing a white dress, which I made sure to let her know how wrong it was, but that wasn't even the worst of it all, because then the worst happened. It was around the time we all were dancing. Towards the end of the night, I was quite tipsy myself from the alcohol when Pam's date proposed to her. Honestly, no one saw it coming. Literally no one, because who would be so out of their mind to get engaged once again when it's not even been a couple of months since they got divorced? The alcohol, along with the sight of my parents and sister all hyped up, was all I needed to blow up. So much so that my husband called security to kick my parents and Pam, along with her date, out of the reception hall. Ever since then, I have been subjected to criticism from everyone except for my husband's side of the family, my friends, my siblings, my cousins, and my husband. Now, I'm not really sure what to do. Was I really the a-hole for blowing up at her? Hi, everyone. It's been 2 days since I got married, and after muting all my texts and calls from everyone, I decided to open them and read them all one by one. Surprisingly, the messages weren't as bad as they were initially. Most of them simply just talked about how they wanted to meet up and discuss things. Now, I have my suspicions about their niceness, but I want to give this a try because it's not like they've never been mature, and honestly, I just want things to be sorted for once and for all. I really don't want to be stuck in the middle, and so I have made plans to meet them up tomorrow itself. We'll update you all when that happens. I met up with my family today, and you guys were totally right. They haven't changed a single bit. Firstly, as soon as I entered the house, I was greeted by my entire extended family. That was not like I was promised by my parents, who said that only they would be there, along with my sister. I immediately could sense some sort of BS intervention coming through my way. I was highly alerted and knew I was going to get up and leave the moment I heard some stupid thing being spewed out. And of course, the moment I sat down and my parents finished their sugarcoating, they put it to me straight. They informed me that the only way I would be accepted back into the family was by paying for my sister's second wedding because apparently her new rich fiance is refusing to pay for it after the humiliation I put him through. I literally began laughing, y'all. I mean, I saw something like this coming, but something this low? I knew I couldn't just be here sitting. I simply got up, told them that our relationship was over, and left. My sister tried following me, cussing me out, telling me that she deserves this little bit after everything I put her through. I told her to screw off and that if she tried to follow me, I wouldn't hesitate to call the cops. I guess that seemed to have shut her up, but of course, the text messages haven't stopped coming. I know I still have a lot to deal with, but for now, I'm just going to take a long nap and let myself process everything. I will be posting a final update eventually. It's finally happened. I, along with my siblings and cousins, finally decided to completely cut contact with our families. It was a tough decision to make because, regardless of how much we hate them, I'll never be able to deny the fact that we did have a sense of attachment with them. Our parents haven't stopped trying to contact us ever since, and from what I have gathered, the rich fiance that Pam claimed to be with turned out to be a married man with absolutely no money. He was simply seeking to scam Pam for the house our parents got her. Honestly, I was not surprised a single bit because the dude looked nothing more than a compulsive liar. In all honesty, I feel no sense of empathy for her, as all of this is something she brought upon herself. From cheating on her husband to ruining my wedding, this karma is the bare minimum for her, and I can only hope that she gets more to learn her lesson. NTA, good on you for cutting off your family. You should have done this way back, right when you got into college. But I also know that there are people who wouldn't have cut their families off even after going through a situation like this. So good job, OP. NTA, Pam is a horrible human being, and only your family is to be blamed for enabling her behavior. Don't question your decision and have a happy married life. I, 20, male, live with two other roommates, Jeff, 21, male, and Amelia, 20, NB, in our three-bedroom apartment. Our apartment is fully furnished and includes a common kitchen and living room space. Me and Amelia are best friends and have known each other since sixth grade and moved in with another friend who moved out at the end of the year. Jeff was randomly assigned to us at the end of the summer. All three of us were very cool with each other in the beginning, except that Jeff absolutely can't stand that me and Amelia occasionally watch movies, TV shows, and converse in the living room late into the night, usually ending around 1 to 2 a.m. Mostly because both of us are close to our jobs and don't get out until 10 to 11 p.m. After a couple of instances of getting texts from Jeff asking us to please be quiet or please just go into your rooms, I messaged Jeff asking him if he could find a compromise. Me and Amelia already lowered the TV and talking levels, and we were used to hanging out like this 3 to 4 nights a week. But now, to accommodate Jeff, we only do these late night hangouts once on the weekend and not during the school week. Even then, Jeff still instructs us, even on the one night a week, to vacate the living room at 12. Jeff stated that we are violating his rights as a tenant to peaceful and quiet sleep, and that he has morning classes and opens at his job, and that he will not accept anything less than adherence to a strict ban on the living room after 12 midnight. I responded and told him that he is violating our rights as tenants to freely roam around common spaces we all pay for. I told him especially that we are not violating anything in our lease agreement or noise policy, and that he will simply have to suck it up. He is now threatening us with official complaints through the leasing office and says we may get fined if we do not adhere to his proposed ban. AITA for telling him to deal with it and possibly violating his rights to sleep, or TTA for not willing to compromise and possibly violating our rights to exist in the common spaces? Jeff actually did go ahead and file a complaint with the leasing office. However, he apologized and said that was the wrong way to handle things, especially because we hadn't talked about it in person. We all sat down and he ended up apologizing for wanting to enforce a ban on the living room, saying it was wrong. We ended up coming to the conclusion that this was clearly a lack of communication on his part, and that in the future he will do better about updating us about his work and school schedule, letting us know when he won't be there overnight, and finally establishing what days were cool for him and what days weren't. Everything is all right between all of us, and things should be smoother going forward. NTA. Listen, I'm Jeff. I cannot sleep with any noise, and my preferred sleep environment would be a soundproof box with a light breeze pumped in from an external source and 1,000 pillows. Also, I live in New York City, so that's not happening. You are asking for a compromise, which is totally reasonable. Jeff has early mornings, so you should respect that what you do in the common area impacts his sleep. But he doesn't get to say no common spaces after midnight, 7 days a week. He needs a noise machine if he can hear quiet conversations and a TV at low volume. He also needs to realize he lives with roommates, and so he should expect a certain level of noise at all times, and certainly a movie and conversation after midnight a few nights a week. Tell him to go to the leasing office, and you will happily go with him, and let them know that Jeff has told you that you cannot have the TV on at any volume after midnight, and this just isn't working out. Quiet times does not mean no noise. They mean no power tools, no parties, and no loud music. YTA. If Jeff can hear you two in the living room and he's having a hard time sleeping, then you're being too loud. If he has to get up early in the morning, it's rude of you to be in the living room at 1 to 2 a.m. I think the compromise at midnight makes sense. Hi, I, 22 male, live in an apartment complex, and about 2 years ago, I ran into an older gentleman, G, in the lobby, and we got to talking. He was super friendly and almost seemed to me like he was longing for some company. I found out he lived a couple of doors down from me. So a few days later, I ended up knocking on his door and giving him some cookies I baked. He invited me in and told me about his stories from the army and showed me memorabilia and old pictures. Over the next couple of months, I would try to visit him at least once a week, and we quickly became friends. I learned that his son and family were generally pretty busy and lived on the other side of the country, so they rarely ever go to see him. I told him that I really love cars, and his face lit up, and we walked down to the garage and he showed me his cars, an old Mustang and an old Datsun. I was amazed as he told me stories of street racing in his youth, and we spent many subsequent meetings working on his Mustang and getting it running again. This went on for a while. I even invited him to Thanksgiving dinner with my family and really cherished my conversations with him. Sadly, he passed in his sleep about a month and a half ago, and I was down for a while. Then I get contacted by an attorney who tells me that G had left both of his cars to me in his will. For the record, he had never mentioned or even hinted this to me at all. I was ecstatic because I would have some beautiful cars to make his memory live on, something I could always remember him by. Recently, his son, who never visited him once in the 2 years I knew him, who was in the area for the funeral, confronted me and basically said that I was stealing from their family, and those cars are rightfully his, and that he had to pay G's bills for the last month so that the will could actually come in effect. I explained my history and friendship with G, and he basically said that I must have been manipulating his father and made him write that in his will, which is crazy. But I understand that he is grieving as well, so I just didn't engage. These cars really mean a lot to me, but I do sympathize with his son. I was considering maybe keeping the Mustang and giving the Datsun to his son as a show of good faith, but I'm not sure what the right thing to do here is. Also, the son and his family received all his other items and whatever assets he had. WIBTA for keeping both cars? NTA, relationships are complicated, but if the dad wanted the cars to go to his son, he would have left them to him. He left them to you, probably because he thought you'd value them more. Maybe if the son had spent more time with him, he would have left the cars to his son. NTA, I'm pretty sure he must have mentioned to his attorney why he was doing this. Y'all built a relationship and started working on the cars as part of that relationship. He knew you'd remember him by having them to cherish and work on after he was gone. You made his last 2 years more bright and happy as well, since not even his own son or other family spent time with him. You became just that, part of his family.